ha 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 ha. Here we go. Ooh. Hello, nobody. Oh, hey, Lucas. Welcome to the first. Yeah, right. um, it's good to have simple solutions, isn't it? Because I mean, like literally, we've been doing the live streams for about a year, I guess, and it's just like yesterday, absolutely no signal whatsoever from that, the strong one, and I didn't even know the computer had an onboard Wi-Fi thing. So when I looked in the device manager, it said gigabit something something Wi-Fi, and I thought, okay, that's what I got. Why isn't it working at full speed? Turns out what I had was a cheap $15 one by Link 600. But fortunately, we had an extra one, so we're plugging in. Yeah, happy to. Hey, Cosmo. Always good to have spares. All right, well, let's see. Should we get to some news before we announce the winner of the Team Bachido Happi 2014 edition first printing, first and only. I'm not sure if we're going to make them again. We'll announce that soon. In a few minutes, we'll wait till some other folks get here. Hopefully, Jose will get here before the end of the stream. I guess he only missed once, but it kind of established a reputation. Let's see. I've got some cool things to show. Let's start with let's start with the 120-year-old Shamisen. This is exciting. Switch to the Docam. So a couple in Portland, I guess their family members, their family had a shamisen that was made in 1897. And if you saw my Facebook page for friends, this was broken into four pieces, and then the tenjin was also disconnected. But for being 120-year-olds, can you imagine 120-year-old shamisen? It's in remarkably good condition, except for the broken pieces. For the saw, the only little damage is these dings, or these wood chips that have been removed. And I don't think we can fill those in without being more noticeable or gluing it together. So I'm just going to leave that as is. I'm a little worried about, I don't want to do anything where I'd have to refinish it because I've no idea what was used in 1897. I figure it's urushi. I'm sure that this is definitely urushi, but did they use sashime urushi? I don't know. Kind of opens a can of worms, as they say, for wood this old to scrape it all away and start over. So yeah, gonna keep it vintage, keep it antique. Wow, that's a beauty. It's interesting sometimes these shamisen that I get that are old, it's not uncommon to see 80-year-old shamisen or 100-year-old or such. And some, that looks like kind of basic building materials, oak or whatever, that have just paint, kind of a dark paint or stains or things to make it look like koki or to make it look more expensive. Of course, those can't really be refinished besides scraping it all away to have blonde wood again, which would look pretty cool. But it's really neat to see the different variety. Let's just take a look at this in terms of variety, what was done for the nakago. So these are two separate pieces of wood. This is very common to have, koki or shitan or expensive wood for the saw, and then the nakago to have, cheap or light material. So this is not uncommon. But take a look at this. This part needed to be higher. It's a little blurry, but basically there's a joint here. So it fits in nicely, or it looks really smooth. Sometimes on old shamisen, they'll just glue in a shim. That's what I noticed the difference. Yeah, old shamisen, they'll just glue in a shim, and that'll be that, and no one's going to see it, so they don't make it look all that nice. But I'm impressed with this. Oh wait, there isn't a joint. It's just literally two pieces. There's a piece of wood, and there's a piece of wood. The two pieces of blonde wood look like a diagonal, kind of a miter sort of thing. Okay, so it's not as special as I thought, but still looks pretty cool all the same. I might do that with mine, more just for looks than anything, to put a piece of ebony, a plate there. Let's take a look at the dough again before we move on. Any questions? Hey, Jose, you made it. No, actually, it's been... I mean, for the saw, it's not been too bad. They wanted to have it refinished to make it look, it's going to be used mostly for decoration as well as plain. But, it's nice to have it look clean and good. Although I kind of like the look of the older, keep it to show its age. It's nice to show its age. But this joint was pretty easy. Just soak it in water, let the hide glue dissolve a bit, scrape it away, use some acetone or such, and then tight bond wood glue. You can see there's just the tiniest, like a quarter millimeter even, bump, because the saw sits in deeper than the tinging, but leveling it flat would mean removing the finish, and we don't want to do that. So that's fine. Going to use a soap, warm soapy water, to remove the residue here. And then, actually, to kind of touch it up, I'm thinking of using something I recently got from Urushi's shop in Japan. The place where I got the urushi for the dough, if we remember from the last live stream on Facebook, the dough I had that I made and did the urushi on, about 9 coats of urushi, but I couldn't get rid of the matte look. It was very smooth but matte, and I wanted that kind of mirror-like sheen. So the urushi shop in Japan sent me a finer, or I bought a finer powder, migako, a powder to use first, and then a compound which contains some silicone, it says. But this is a compound usually used for urushi to give it a glossier look, and that made all the difference, let me tell you. Look at that. I wish I had a side-by-side comparison, but yeah, this is really nice. And I figure I might as well use the same compound on this, just to bring back a bit of the sparkle. I mean, it's already pretty sparkly, but being that this is definitely urushi, can't hurt. It's kind of hard to tell, but there are these little bumps in the dough, and believe you me, I started with the 100 grit sandpaper, went all the way up to 12,000 grit, and went very smoothly. So I was surprised to see, um, like there, where this light is. You can kind of see, oops, right here. I was surprised to see these little depressions and indents and whatnot. But I figure that's where the figure, literally, that's where the figure is. And perhaps the figure is harder or such. So when I sanded, it sanded the parts around the figure more than the figure itself. Oh, like here, yeah. Which is no problem, actually. It's no problem at all. But I just have a little worry that maybe checking will happen because here there's some checking. I filled that in with super glue. I saw that before doing the urushi. But there was another check mark right here, a crack in the wood that I didn't notice before. And fortunately, that'll be covered by the skin, but just hope nothing else pops up. No other cracks occur. It's kind of the danger using, woods that haven't been used before is you never know what'll happen. It'll look sexy, but is that all? Hey, Carl. Hey, Zach. Hey, Maggie. Hey, Jose, if you wanted to get this shiny, the compound is called Sanjet or Sanjet. Type this in the old Googles with urushi, and you might be able to find it's a tube. I should have brought it, but oh well. Yeah, that's cool. Oh, Jose, yes, this saw is thinner. If you look on Kameya, the website kameya.com or eKameya, I think they have a blog post where they show the two kinds of Hosozao Shamisen. They had one that was a certain age, like 100 years ago, and it was this thin, and then a newer one, I think made in the 1980s or more recent, which was much thicker. So even Hosozao Shamisen, the definition of what would be a thin neck has changed in the past 120 years. But wow, that would be really thin. Your finger would cover 2 strings, especially Carl's fingers. Let's see. So this is this. Though it worked as good as it could be, regluing this. What's most difficult is I don't know how long it was broken, but the flat surfaces, they will warp. Even when I have a piece of wood, ebony, like flattening ebony for the saw, after I get it level, I have to glue it quickly because sometimes within 30 minutes or so, it'll start bending. It'll start warping. So, yeah, that's what happened with this. It was shallower in the middle, kind of depressed in, so it was like this. Yeah, not perfect, but it'll definitely work. There is a reason why you can get shamisen for $10 on Yahoo auction that are completely broken in 4 pieces because shamisen shops, they usually don't want to repair these anymore because it is a real pain to put a dough back together, and there's so many of the shamisen, and the demand is relatively low for this kind, of course. Tsugaru shamisen and Futuzao, they really hold their value. Any points about this? Oh yeah, here's a pro tip. If you've got a shamisen that you're repairing, putting back together, because there will be, most likely, it won't be a 100% flush connection, a flush joint, there will be some gap. Using epoxy is a good idea. However, if you don't want to damage the finish, I used epoxy for this. If you don't want to damage the finish, you can put wax just on the edges right here. Like here and here. Right up to the edge. And then when it's all hard, after the epoxy is cured, it's hard to remove, but use a heat lamp or a hair dryer or something, melt the wax, and then the epoxy comes right off. So that's pretty fun. Oh yeah, the Sanjet compound, that's going to be fun for this one. Okay, that's that. We saw the dough. Here's the update on the Shamisen progress. Cut the mortise. This is a little bit bigger than usual. Why did it get that way? I got carried away with the chisel. But fortunately, the saw is still thicker. The saw is going to come to maybe 3 millimeters from that corner there. So not that much contact, but that's okay. I'll be careful not to split the wood. And then last night got started a little bit on the tenjin joint. So that's going to fit like so. Oop. Yeah. So that'll be fun and interesting. Do we see? This turned out pretty nice. I'm just still kind of worried that the urushi, because urushi is brown, fundamentally. So will this look as colorful and pretty when this coat is over it? We will find out. Okay, so I believe show and tell is over. Hey Lucas, hey Jose, Carl, Kamashi on all the strings with one fingertip, right? How easy would that be? Really easy. Thanks everyone. Okay, so shall we reveal the winner of the Shamisen Live contest? Much fewer participants than I thought would participate, but we definitely got some, and thanks Jose for joining in today. So can you guess who won this fabulous Team Bachido Happi? You don't have to guess because it is Lucas. Lucas, congratulations. You've won. You don't have to win this wrinkled. I would call it slightly wrinkled. My mother would say it's really wrinkled, but that's just a matter of opinion. Either way, you don't have to win this one. I will be sending you a brand new one from Japan via Nitta-san. If you want it signed by Nitta-san, I can ask to have that done. Just let me know. Yeah, cool stuff indeed. I look forward to seeing you rocking it at the what is it, the Northern Europe Shamisen gathering. How's Grant doing on that, by the way? Are you guys going to be meeting up soon? I hope so. That sounded really bad, but I mentioned that mine had been in a hard case for quite a while. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I remember you saying that. How to... Oh, if anybody has any tips on how to clean it, I'm thinking... I think it's cotton. Yeah, I think this is just cotton, so just regular wash, or probably very light to be safe, and then just an iron. If you need to wash it, you probably don't need to wash it unless you spilled something on it. But just a regular iron should be fine. Yeah, rocket. Rock it, not a rocket. We must meet in next months. Yeah. So what's the story? I thought Grant was going to be setting up something. It's infused with the blood and tears from 2014, right? There was a bit of everything. Fortunately, just no vomit. That was good. So, yeah, Lucas sent a video. Well, I watched it a few days ago, and he had a great point that some people might be able to relate to. So Lucas has been getting a really good tataki bachi action going. Oh, that's loud. From his video, I can tell his tataki bachi is nice and strong. But he was saying, bro, I can't go that fast. I mean, how can I keep that strong and clean of a tataki bachi and do, multiple strikes? And that's not the volume. He sees people playing slowly with tataki and people playing fast with great tataki. So what are you supposed to do? So we all first need to, of course, understand the basics, the fundamentals of tataki. Fundamentally, how do we get a tataki striking bachi sound? It's all made by the bachi going down, pressing on the string, and using enough force, just enough, to push the bachi past the string onto the skin. And the bachi will flex just a little bit. So when it is released from the string, the bachi bent will pop back into place, which also adds a little extra force when striking the skin. That's why you'll notice when you've got an angle to your bachi right here, when you've got this angled, about like so, you will hear a sharper snap than if you have it completely parallel to the skin. And it takes more force to do so. But if you angle it, tilt it like so, you need very little force. So that's basically tataki bachi. And two concepts that I mentioned last week, but I'll share them for the YouTube live. There's different ways we think. We think swinging the bachi. We think swing from the arm. We think swinging from the wrist. How much of each? And then in terms of a mental exercise, we think of, or mental analogy, we think of pressing down with the feeling that you're pushing to your stomach. But does that mean you're pushing with so much force that you will poke the skin, break through the skin and hit your stomach? No. But also, even when I've taught that analogy to my students, they will sometimes still strike outwardly like so. Just a little bit harder, but it'll still pop out, which defeats the point. So let's see. I don't know where I'm going with this because I haven't rehearsed, but here are two tricks that I did want to remind and share. So kind of on top, if you have heard me talk about this, striking down until you hit the stomach, keep that in mind, but we're going to shift way to a different way to look at it. Is imagine there is a string, a thread, threaded to the tip of your bachi right here. It's a little knot, and it goes, needle on the other end, or I don't know, magical thread that can go through the skin to the other side. Then with your other hand, you pull it, and as you pull, that thread is still connected to your bachi here. So let's do some improv, some miming. As you pull back, pull forward. Let's shorten the string a little bit. Okay, so we pull this back, and note. Yeah, just look at that for a moment. So if we're imagining striking, if we're using the old analogy of striking down to hit the stomach, that only shows us the general direction of where we're going. However, it's more than that. While that's the direction, we could be coming to that direction from various. We could be going that way from various directions and angles and whatnot. But what's more important is just going straight down, straight down. And so if you have a thread connected, you can't, and it's connected to the tip, it has to go straight. If this is pulling this way, it won't be going whoop, or that's hard to do. It won't be doing other directions. It will have to go straight back. So that's a feeling to keep in mind. And here's what's more so, is don't think that you're pressing with your thumb, because after the strike is done, the bachi needs to push in a little bit, just to ensure a nice, solid, clean strike. But don't think about your thumb pushing the bachi, even though that's what it's doing. Imagine that you're pulling this thread from this end, and as it strikes down, you just yank a bit more. And then, so that the bachi presses in. Like that. Yeah, that's the best analogy. So keep that in mind. So fundamentally, that's what we're going for with tataki bachi. Now, how to make it faster? If you can do it slower and get that sound, basically, your next goal is to experiment and really figure out how to consolidate your motions, how to reduce the time, the distance, everything in your motions. So when you strike, of course, this arm is going to turn. This arm is going to pivot. It's going to rotate. Your bachi, your wrist, is going to rotate as well. Oops. Your wrist is rotating, and your arm is rotating. So you need to. This still needs to rotate when you're playing faster, especially. All of this needs to be engaged. And by being engaged, it will allow you to play cleaner at a faster speed. These can't be shut off. And there is a balance. Like you use this a certain amount, the percentages of power and movement and whatever. This is used a certain amount. This is used a certain amount. This is used a certain amount, and so on and so forth. And you just have to find the balance, the perfect balance, reducing the movement of each part enough so you can get the same amount of power and intensity from this whole arm at a fraction of the distance and time. Yeah, I didn't write any of that. Let's see. Carl, you have some practice to do before you can be accepted into the Mimes Guild. Yes. Did you know before Shamisen or interest in Japanese things of any kind, I was really into ventriloquism. I was 7 or 8 or so. Yeah, I had the Charlie McCarthy puppet, and I thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Fortunately, I only used it for maybe 5 times. Poor Charlie. I sold him on eBay. I'm not really that into puppets, but I was for a time. Anywho. I mentioned that to should I say that? To a customer once. Really difficult customer. But I trying to get on a personal connection, to show that it's not just about money or anything. We want to have have the connection, the love, the feeling. So she had mentioned something about puppets or things, or mentioned, doing shamisen all my life or whatever. And I said, well, I used to be into ventriloquism. And she said, oh, there's nothing scarier than a ventriloquist or something. That didn't go well. But anywho, I digress. A long time ago. Jose, Kyle, I have a question about the string height in a saw. I realize it's for the connection height between the saw. I have a question. Let's see. I have a question about the string height in the saw. The action, I guess. I realize that it's for the connection height between the saw and the do. What do you think about it? What do you mean by that? I'm just curious. Every time I swap between my two shamisen, I have a completely different feeling playing the notes. That's a good point. I meant to write a comment. I read Oriel's, if I'm pronouncing his name right, wonderful review for the Sakura Shamisen in the Bachido forum. It's a really terrific review. And he had mentioned that the action of his shamisen is higher than his other shamisen. And I meant to address that yesterday, and I plan to do so later. Yeah, it varies depending on the shamisen, or depending on the maker. Generally, I mean, let's see, it depends. If action is lower, there is more sustain in notes. When it's higher, I think it's I don't know. Is it a bit more clear? I know some shamisen shops will do that, raise the strings, because if it's higher, then there will be less chance of the kanberi, the buzzing from the wearing down of the neck. Especially for, that's a general point. Yeah, if the string action is really low, then when the string is pressed down and there's a bump here, it doesn't take much for buzzing to occur from that bump. But if the string action is higher and this is pressed down, the angle is more acute, I think. And so if there's a bump here, you can still have a clear tone and not have any effect on that. And yeah, if you're planning to do kanberi, see Maggie, thank you for coming. If you're good at doing kanberi, then you can just take it off, have low action, scrape it down, and then keep enjoying it. Personally, I do like lower action, but there is a balance for sure. One of my shamisen is incredibly low, and I don't find the sound to be all that pleasant. I mean, it's really easy to play, but no, it lacks a power, I guess. Something in the tone just kind of lacks. A little too loose. I don't know. Slippery, slip and slide, a little slippery. But then too much action is not good either. I'm rambling. If you want, if it's really unpleasant for Oriole, it could be sent back to Tokyo Agaki, and then they can adjust. They can take the nakago off and change the action. And we have told them, I've told them in the past that I wanted all the shamisen to have lower action. I don't know if they didn't get that memo, if they forgot about it or something. Generally what's be considered low action is if you have a straight edge. What would make low action is if the straight edge goes along here and there is 3.5 millimeters of distance between the bottom of the straight edge and the top of the do. If there's 3.5 millimeters, that's the lowest it could reasonably go to have a good sound without, to have have an ideal sound, I guess, or without, not ideal sound. Yeah, the most comfortable playability, sustain, and whatnot. Any more than that is at a greater risk of buzzing. And it can go anywhere, depending on which shamisen you pick up. It can go anywhere from 3.5 millimeters to flat down, 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, or just completely flat. If it's going the other way, negative 1 millimeter, then that's just a poorly made shamisen. Yeah, so I should write him. Or you can tell me to write me, or however it works out. If it's really uncomfortable, it can be sent back and changed. It's not made improperly or anything. It's just a matter of preference. Oh, Carl's has to leave, so we will stop here for a moment. Oh, thank you, Jose. I like to see that. I wonder what Yoshida Kyodai, what their shamisen is like. I remember I was staying at a friend's house who was a student of one of the Yoshida brothers. And they were talking about, I mentioned Osanai Kaoru, or sorry, forget that, I mentioned a certain shamisen player, and how he has such a good sound and technique and good style. And in the private discussion, it was mentioned, oh, that player, is such a... Nah, I shouldn't mention that. Never mind. We don't do that on Facebook Live. I mean, we don't do that in things that can be shared. Sorry. Gossip. But if you come to Shami Camp in the EU, I can tell you that story. Oh, hey. Speaking of Shami Camp. So the thing... Hey, Carl. Welcome back. The thing... Speaking of Shami Camp. The thing we're planning for in Prague, long story short, isn't going to happen. However, I still want Shami Camp to happen next year because it would be great to get us all together. So the thoughts are it could be held in Berlin again with the help of Shamisen Berlin EV. Sue Bunyamin is going to look into grants to see what we can do because above all we need to get grant funding to bring in people. Oh, Lucas. Hey, yeah, well, if there's a nonprofit organization or something that it can be partnered with, I don't know if your bike racing is a nonprofit, but somehow we need to get grant funding to pay for flights and instructors and things. So if there's a way, if there's local grants there that can work, that would be great. Berlin, Sue is going to keep looking to see if she can find some. And one thing we're considering maybe is London, because David Hughes has the SOAS group there. Hibiki does his thing there as well. So there might be more cultural grants or opportunities or something. Which means, of course, everyone will have to change their currency from the euro and such. But then again, I'll have to do it either way, so I don't really care. Ha 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 ha. No. A majority of the members will be coming. A majority of the attendees will be coming from EU anyway, so Berlin probably would be better. But yeah, it really depends on where we can get grants. If anybody has free time and wants to look into grants available, contact Sue actually, because she maybe wouldn't mind some help to make it kind of a team effort in terms of looking for grants or volunteers and such. Sweet. Yeah, I would like doing Berlin. London too. I've never been to London, but excuse me. And we'll definitely. I think we'll still do it in September. Either way, September, November. Yeah, because doing the Taikai in April, gotta space it out a little bit. Yeah. Big city. And big city means lots of food, I imagine. Lots of food options. Lots of brewskis. Okay, so that's a lot of talking. Is there any specific techniques or whatnot that people have been wondering about and having questions on? Maybe we should arrange a drill that makes use of this polling. Any tips to me on the video I sent today? Yeah. As I mentioned that I really like the vibrato you did in your chords. Um, what was that? If possible, I guess the thing I would say is when you do the vibrato. Vibrato doesn't have to be everywhere, of course. Just maybe on the highlighting the last chord on the phrase. Like no vibrato there. I mean, yeah, vibrato. There's vibrato. Can have vibrato there. And this is what I hear a lot of people doing when they do vibrato. They just do one motion like that. Or 2 times or so. Don't think, yeah, keeping the motion. Don't think of vibrato as like a uchi or like a one motion thing. Once you engage it, it'll just keep moving until you're ready to go to the next note. And of course, that's a little bit harder to do with your ring and index, but you'll just have to get more of your hand involved. It's easiest when it's the middle and index. Like that. But that's a good thing to work on. Carl, I suck at the thumb mute. Never mind. No, but seriously, I mostly get false harmonics. Here's a question. Do you put your pinky down on the koma? Because that does make a big difference in terms of the harmonics you get out. I think the harmonics tend to be clear, more clear when it's being covered. Here's without. The pinky is up. It's muted, but yeah, there really isn't that much harmonic. Now thumb is planted on the koma right there. Remember, to do this, you don't have to have the thumb right up to the tip. As long as the thumb is touching the string when the tip does, it's fine for the thumb to be down here. Just whatever gives you the best angle. And maebachi, for having quiet tone, doesn't necessarily have to be here on the wood. It can be back here, especially if your pinky is on the koma. You can get plenty quiet tone. I haven't done it in a while. And such. What do you say to that, Mr. Headland? Let's do separate techniques. Is it okay to have a small space from the bachi to the pinky finger. Just a second. Okay, so it's more about the angle of the thumb than the position. Yes, yes, yes. Relative to the string, I'd say. Is it okay to have a small space from the bachi? Is it, sorry. Oh, is it okay to have a small space from the bachi to the pinky finger? Do you mean like this? In which case, yes, that's fine. Masahiro tends to have a big space there, whereas I usually see Reagan, his is down like so. Which goes to show, you know, there's multiple ways to do it, and it's all good. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Jose. Yes, not so big, but just a bit. Not so big, just a bit. Yeah. That doesn't matter at all. Especially because, yeah, one great player will have no gap, and then another great player will have a lot of gaps. So, just like the weight of the bachi, you know, there's good players on both ends who use completely opposite weights, and they can make it work. Hi, Toxic Krafa. Almost kind of gives it a more of an electric tone when you have it muted for some reason. I'm not the greatest at it myself. Again, if I have a small space, then I can have the pinky parallel to the bachi. Yeah. I could see that. Yeah, then put in that gap. Oh, hey, here's something interesting. So when we do regular striking, as I mentioned, it's going straight down, like if you had that string pulling back, like so. However, when we're doing the Komets K, where the our pinky is down here on the koma, our motion won't be the same. Because again, we need to get the angle right to pull off those harmonics. So in this case, we're more pressing and scooping to the side. To get those harmonics, if we want to play with a lot of harmonics. That's kind of, didn't realize that before. In this case, yeah, it's really we're not whipping. It is a completely different feeling. Before we're whipping it down. In this case, we're pushing it like that. Hey, oops. Yeah. Let's see. Jose, that's an excellent question. Boy, this past month, so when Yuzu was here, we did a lot of recording, and I got a big recording kick. And every morning, my usual shamisen practice time, instead of practicing, I would record mandolin guitar, which I got to redo for one song, um, and shamisen, of course. So yeah, it's been a whole month of not really playing. And last week was the Japan Culture Fair, and on stage, without much warm up, of course, without playing it for a month or more, I did Jonkarabushi, and like midway through, just the entire hand just cramped up. Still pushed through it, but oi, no, you gotta keep the practice up. Um, so yeah, so as of a few days ago, I finally getting back into the regiment. In fact, yesterday I spent 2 or 3 hours doing just Jonkarabushi, not for fun, um, but this commercial for the new skin here. We're almost done with it, and to make sure that the sound is really good, the scene is at the ocean, but I'm overlaying the shamisen with a studio recording, basically getting lining up the notes exactly the same as in the video. So 3 hours of tataki, this full power Jonkarabushi to kind of line it up. Yeah, both hands are really dead, but I'm happy that I don't feel it from yesterday. Must still be young. But what I'm doing, I'm getting back into, remember Turkish March? I'm doing Turkish March again. Because when Mike was here last month, yeah, when Mike was here last month, that was the first time doing it with someone, and I realized I found several places that I got to work on. So yeah, doing those complex songs again, to kind of build my dexterity back up. It's not push it to the limit from Scarface, you mean? Right, that's what I mean. Oh, Ninjari Banban. Wow, I haven't done that in years. Do you remember that, Carl? Carl did that in Japan. Torture March. You weren't trust enough to play the melody. That was 4 years ago. Almost 5 years ago. Nah, 4 years ago. That was, yeah. Grant would often do chords to those songs. But the thing about that is, chords are very important. I don't even remember the chords myself. If you play the chords, you can always whistle the melody, but you can't whistle the chords. The cockpit, right? Well, goodness me. So, it's 2 p.m. in 5.5 hours, I'm going to a Balkan music recital thing. And I haven't been going to it's house concert. I haven't been going to concerts much recently, but it's literally half a block away. A friend converted, or friend of a friend, friend of my brother converted their house into a venue for house concerts. So it's so easy to go see live shows. So yeah, oud, hand drums, good singing, maybe the old fiddles. Looking forward to that. That's my plan for the day, as well as some doing garden, of course, usual work and whatnot. Let's see, what day is it? 14th. Exactly next week, I'm going to Portland. And Hunter Ishikawa, the fellow I'm doing the tataki workshop with, in September, we have to get together to compose material to find out what the hell we're going to teach. So yes, I will not be here on Thursday. The week after, Yuzu will be coming back, so that would be really cool if we could get a live with her, if she's okay with this kind of spontaneity and nerding out on Tatakibachi, which I'm sure she'll be fine with. Oh, 11 p.m. in France. Okay, thank you for joining, Toxic Rafa. Thank you all for joining today. Jose, thank you for joining. Joshua, thank you for joining. Lucas, thank you for joining, and congratulations. Let me know if you want Nita-san to sign it for you, and I will ask if he's available to do that. Carl, yes, always a time. I will change Pops's guitar strings and re-record that thing. Cool. Oh, hey, Alex. Alec. Hey, this is my student in Santa Cruz here. He's doing really good with the Tatakibachi. And speaking of which, yeah, he's well on his way. He's learning Kitano Hibiki, which is we've realized is the 0 to 100 or beginner to master song. So hey, hopefully I'll be seeing him one of these days on I don't know, live stream or something. Maybe not. Okay, I got nothing else to say. Welcome to Thursday and maybe Friday somewhere. Thank you for joining. See you all later. Let's see.